Should the Detroit Pistons give up on playing two bigs together with the front court that they currently have? We're going to go through the numbers, break them down in today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I'm your host, Coop Cahill. You can find me over on Twitter at Coop Cahill. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons, hit that subscribe button, or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. And today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. That's PrizePicks.com. Use promo code LOCKEDON. Later on in the podcast, I'm going to talk with you guys about Marvin Bagley specifically. We'll talk about his play and some stuff. Just stay tuned for it. I don't want to ruin it yet, but it's going to be concerning Marvin Bagley. And then later on, even further into the podcast, we'll talk about Tankathon, where the Pistons rank right now. When it comes to the lottery, how much of a lead do the Pistons have on the first overall pick right now in the lottery? We're going to talk about all of that. But first, I want to break down the Pistons' two big man lineups that they've been doing. It's been a topic of discussion a lot on this podcast. Heck, it's been a topic of discussion across the entire Pistons community about the Pistons running two bigs, because Troy Weaver and Dwayne Casey have talked about running two bigs since the offseason. They talked about how they were moving Stu to the 4 because they wanted to run two bigs. They brought back Marvin Bagley. They traded for James Wiseman. And they have continued over and over and over again to talk about wanting to run two bigs. And the reasoning, which it makes sense, is that everyone at the top of the East, they run two bigs. And if you want to compete with those guys, you need to have things that can counter them. So just saying that, it makes sense. However, a follower of mine on Twitter tweeted out these numbers. And, I went and fact checked these and make sure they were right. And they are. These stats are via Cleaning the Glass. So I'm going to read these stats out, and then I want to break them down with you guys and give you guys what my takeaway is from this, okay? They're pretty startling numbers, but let's just read them off here. So James Wiseman, this is their on-off net rating, okay? James Wiseman, when he's in a two big man lineup, so there's another big next to him, has a minus 20 net rating. When he's on the floor with just one big, which is himself, obviously, when it's just him, minus 4.1 net rating. So it's a 16-point differential between the two. Jalen Duren, when he's on the floor with the two big man lineup, minus 15.3. When he's on the floor as the only big, it's minus 8. So that's a 7-point differential. Marvin Bagley. We'll talk about this even more later, but Marvin Bagley, when he's on the floor with two bigs, him and another big, minus 26.1. When he's the only big on the floor, minus 3.4. So that's 23-point differential right there. And then Stu, when he's on the floor with another big, minus 14.7 net rating. When he's the only big, has a net rating of minus 2.1. So that's a 12-point differential. What does this say? Well, all the data, all of it suggests that the Pistons' two big man lineup does not work. It's not working, and it's been pretty horrible. Pretty horrible. And all the numbers continue to back up that they're better when there's just one big on the floor. Now, the James Wiseman numbers, they're all small sample size with him because they've been, he's only been on the team for a few weeks, obviously. So his is a small sample size, but I feel like it's gearing up more and more, and it's following the same correlation as all the other statistics you're seeing with the other big. So I don't know if you can really say that. But I just want to throw that out there. Obviously, that his is a small sample size. But this is just the truth here. There's nothing, if the Pistons want to be a two big man lineup in the future moving forward, that's fine. But you have to do it with the right pieces, because the pieces they have right now simply do not work. They don't work. The numbers say it. The eye test says it. It can't work. You cannot run two bigs when they can't shoot, they also can't defend, they also can't rebound, and they also struggle setting screens. Like, you can't run two bigs and have those kind of deficiencies with the two bigs. It eliminates the entire point of running two bigs and immediately handicaps yourself. Running Duren with Bagley, no shooters. Defense is going to struggle. Bad. Running Bagley with Wiseman, no defense. Struggle on the boards, no shooting. Running Duren and Wiseman, same thing. Bagley and Stu, maybe a little bit more shooting with Stu, but you're going to struggle on the boards. Not very good screen setters. It's like each one of the Pistons duos in the front court shows a weakness, a very glaring weakness, if not more than one weakness. Most of them have two weaknesses, some even three. It just can't work. It can't work. So this is my takeaway from this is the Pistons can do this. If they want to run two bigs, that's fine with me, man. From just an overall like far off look at it, simply saying, oh, well, the teams at the top of the East have two bigs. If we want to be as good as them and want to beat them in the future, we got to be able to do it too. Like, just looking at it from afar, you'd be like, okay, that makes sense. But that doesn't mean you can just throw any two bigs together and try and make it work. You can't. It's not going to work that way. And for the third time of the season, this is the third time this season, we've talked about it each time it's happened. Third time this season, Dwayne Casey has come out after the game and said that he had to get on the bigs in the halftime because they weren't rebounding the ball. The Pistons were getting shellacked on the boards at one point. I think they were being out-rebounded by 15 boards at halftime or something close to that. They were getting destroyed on the glass. And he said again, if we're going to run two bigs, we have to be physical. We have to actually win the rebounding battle, blah, blah, blah. That's the third time he's had to say that this year. That should say enough. They don't have the personnel to do this. They just don't. So in the offseason, if they decide that this is something they want to continue to do, actually get bigs that make sense. Actually get bigs that can play with one another. Can Stu play off the bench with Wiseman? You can try it. If Stu can be a good shooter, you think that it has some promise, depending on who you surround them with as well. You think that Stu and Wiseman off the bench could possibly work. But if you're going to try start two bigs, you're going to be starting Duren, and whoever you start at the four, if they're a big, they have to be able to shoot. They just have to. They have to be able to shoot, and they have to be able to rebound if you're going to do this. The whole point in playing two bigs together is so you don't lose the rebounding battle. So you play physical. So your presence is made known in the paint. If that's not happening, there's no point in doing it. And it's no shocker that the Detroit Pistons over the last few games have looked better on the floor when they've been running their 10-day contract guy, Eugene Amarui, at the four. A 10-day contract guy. Not even good player. Actually, let me take that back. Eugene actually has been pretty impressive. But could he actually be a good player? We don't know. All we know is he's actually a 10-day contract guy. He wasn't even in the NBA for a minute. Okay? And he's coming in and making a difference at the starting four, or not the starting four, but when he plays four as one other big. Why? Because he plays defense. He plays very physical. And he's been hitting his threes in these games. So it's a prototypical lineup, a lineup that actually makes sense with a four there that spaces the floor and can play defense. All of a sudden that works. Who would have thought? No duh, that works. While the rest of the NBA, the majority of the rest of the NBA continues to just run fours that really probably are small forwards, just bigger small forwards that just, can shoot, dribble the ball, offensive, that kind of thing. They play defense too, but the fours, I'd say for majority of, or a lot of teams, aren't actually like 7-footers. That's not what's happening. If the Pistons want to go that route instead, if they don't want to go with just like a stretch four or just a small forward that's a little bit like a 6'8", 6'9" guy at power forward that spaces the floor and just plays defense, let's say like a Cam Johnson. If they don't want to just go that route and put him at four, something like that, they want to actually go two bigs, for the love of God, invest in this offseason. Invest in actually getting a big that makes sense next to Jalen Duren. One that can shoot, one that can play defense, and one that can set screens and rebound the basketball. Now, yes, you may be saying, "Cool, that sounds like you're describing a damn near all-star." I might be, but if you're going to do it, that's what you need. A player in the free agency this offseason, I'm not going to lie to y'all, a player in the free agency that actually makes sense in that perspective. Now, there's other concerns that probably just takes him off the possible list. But from just a fit perspective with his talent and skill set, Kristaps Porzingis would fit perfectly with what they're trying to do. He's a 7-footer, spaces the floor out, is a fine rim protector, really good offensive player, and he's extremely long, and you can feel his size. He would be perfect. He would be perfect for what they're trying to do. But they're probably not going to get him because of injury concerns that are very legit, and he's inconsistent. And he'd also probably be expensive. But that's the kind of guy the Pistons need if they're going to do this two big man lineup. Because all the numbers that we've seen through this year show that the Pistons get absolutely obliterated when they try to run two bigs and when they only have one on the floor and run an actual lineup of 4 out, 1 in, and run pick and rolls and spaced floor. All of a sudden, they look like a competent basketball team. Who would have guessed? Not me. Like, it's not rocket science. So, look, again, I'm going to wrap it up with this. I'll say it one more time. I'm fine with the idea of it, but it can't just be an idea. It has to actually make practical sense. And the Pistons they have one guy that they hope could be a 4 like that, and that's Stu. Now, he still has to prove it, but everyone else, we know they can't play together. All the 3 other ones, we know they can't. It's dead. It's a dead mission. So they gotta do something with that in the offseason. It's their biggest weakness. And that in the 3 position. The 3 and 4 position is their biggest weakness by far. If they attack those weaknesses in the offseason, they could be a much better basketball team. So let me know what you guys think about that, man. It's getting depressing, honestly. But coming up, Dwayne Casey says that Marvin Bagley will probably be missing the next few games with another injury to his ankle. Some ankle soreness going on. Does Marvin Bagley's contract look even worse now than it did in the offseason? We'll talk about that when we come back. But first, I want to tell you guys about one of our sponsors, PrizePicks. So let's go ahead and assume that the NFL would still be going on, and you want to bet the over on DeAndre Swift's rushing yards. You want to bet the over on Jared Goff's passing yards. But you also want to take the over in the same night on, let's say, Killian Hayes' assist and Jaden Ivey's points. Well, you can do that. You can put into the exact same entry with PrizePicks, and it's why it's my favorite daily fantasy option out there. You pick 2 to 6 players to see if they score more or less than their PrizePicks projection. You can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. No competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you watch. This includes NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, men's college basketball, women's college basketball, soccer, WNBA, esports, NASCAR, tennis, MMA, boxing, disc golf, Euro basketball, cricket, and more. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's just that easy. Safe and fast withdrawals currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. Download the PrizePicks app and go to PrizePicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports today. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON as sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100 with PrizePicks. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you are listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. Let's just get right into it, man. So Marvin Bagley is going to be missing the next few games due to some ankle soreness. It's time for us to have this discussion. Does Marvin Bagley's contract look even worse right now than it did when they signed it in the offseason? When they signed him in the offseason to the 3-year, $39 million contract, fully guaranteed, no team option, no player option, just fully guaranteed, people like me in the Pistons community that cover the team, create content, we tried to spin it in the most positive way ever. But I feel like almost every single person knew that that contract was bad as soon as they signed it. It made no sense. And there's multiple reasons why after this year, it looks even worse. It makes even more little sense. Like, it makes worse sense with what they did. And the first thing I'll bring up is simply his numbers when he's with 2 bigs and 1 big. This is the argument that people be having about Marvin Bagley. Is he a 4? Is he a 5? If he's a 4, well, let me say this. He's not a 4. That's basically what I'm trying to say. He's not a 4, but for the people that believe he can be a 4, the reason why he can't is because he can't shoot the basketball. He just can't. He can't shoot the basketball, and he can't guard on the perimeter. So he cannot be a 4. He's not good at the 4. He can't be a power forward. It just can't happen. And the numbers back this up. When he's on the floor with another big, having forced to play the 4, he has the worst net rating of any of the other bigs with 2 bigs. Minus 26.1. That is horrific. Their offensive rating, 97. Defensive rating, 123. It's putrid. That's terrible. Absolutely terrible. And why is that? Because on offense, which you've seen over the last 2 games when he started with another big, either one, they have him in the corner and the defense just doesn't respect him and they hang in the paint and no one can get all the way to the rim. They have to kick out to Marvin Bagley, which we've seen over the last few games. They kick out to him. And most of the time, he doesn't shoot the catch and shoot 3 because he can't shoot. Instead, he dribbles into the paint where 3 guys are already waiting for him, and usually it hasn't been a good look. He can't play the 4. He just cannot. It's not something that he can do. It's a dead mission. So then the other thing is, well, can he be a 5? Well, the problem with him at the 5 is he's terrible defensively at the 5. He's not very good defensively at all. He's not a great rebounder, even though I will give him credit. Since returning from his last injury, he has done a better job being physical on the glass and giving more effort on the glass. So I do want to give him credit for that, even though over the last 3 games, that kind of has went out the door. The first 5 games, returning from injury, he was averaging 12 rebounds. Over the last 3 games, he's had 5, 3, and 5. So that just shows that it's an inconsistent thing with him, and he's just overall not a good rebounder, not a great one. And he doesn't set good screens at the 5 position. The one thing he does at the 5 position that is pretty valuable is he's a good lob threat. If you get him the ball around the rim, he finishes everything off around the rim. If he gets it around there, either going to foul him or he's going to finish it off. That's extremely good. That's a good skill to have. He's a tremendous finisher, no doubt about it. And we saw how much that helped Cade Cunningham when he played with him after the All-Star break last year. All of his other weaknesses didn't matter because the Pistons were so desperately missing some big man that could put pressure on the rim and be an interior presence so desperately that his other weaknesses didn't hurt them as much because of how badly it was just the appearance of not having what he provided. So I feel like it's something that we talked about a little bit last offseason, is that just because of how badly the Pistons didn't have what he provided, that he got overvalued by Pistons fans and a lot of people in the Pistons community because what he did provide is something they had no one else could do. So the fact that they finally had it, it was like, oh my God, he's amazing. Thank God. When in reality, he still had his other weaknesses. All the other stuff was still there that was going to be a problem for him moving forward. But just what he provided was just so rare for the Pistons to see that everyone valued it probably a little bit too much. So you have problems with that, is that he can't play the 4, and there's serious concerns about him playing the 5. Now, this is the biggest reason why I'm having this conversation. I'm not having this conversation because he hasn't played well at the 4. I'm not having this conversation because he's shooting 22% from deep this year. When we were told in the offseason they believed that he could possibly space his game out. That's not why I decided to come on here and talk about this. Because he's not the only big that struggled this year. No doubt. Jalen Duren has been amazing. Stu has been inconsistent. He's out for the year. We saw some highs with him. We saw some lows with him. He still has his weaknesses. Wiseman, we see his weaknesses. He struggles rebounding the basketball consistently, especially on the defensive glass. Defensively, he's very inconsistent. We see his struggle. So Marvin Bagley is not the only one who has struggled this year. So that's not why I came on here. I came on here to talk about this contract again and talk about how bad it looks even worse now because he's hurt yet again. He's going to be missing another few games. And what that means is you will now be going on 1, 2, 3, 4 straight seasons where he doesn't play at least 50 games. He hasn't even played 50 games. The last time he played 50 games in the NBA through a season was his rookie season, where he still missed 20 games. This year, he's probably not even going to crack 40 games played. He's only cracked 50 games in his career played in a season once. He's cracked 45 once. And he's cracked 40 once or twice. This year, let's see if he gets to 40, but he very well finished below 40. I say this because Marvin Bagley, I'm not trying to criticize Marvin Bagley himself, because a lot of these injuries, it's not like dudes are going out there and trying to get hurt. They don't want that to happen, obviously. It's not something you can really say, oh, it's Marvin Bagley's fault. He may just be he's just injury prone. I'm sure he would rather not be injury prone, but he just is. But it's not to criticize Marvin Bagley. It's to criticize which is probably Troy Weaver's biggest criticism from me in his time. This and the Bruce Brown trade, but this probably even more, because there's no way in living hell that you should ever be overpaying $13 million a year for 3 years, completely guaranteed, no team options. There's no way you guarantee that type of money to a player that has his deficiencies, that has his worries, the weaknesses that he has at the position he has, that makes a lot of teams believe he's unplayable if you're trying to win games. Forget all that for a guy who can't play games. He hasn't been able to play. He can't play more. He's barely playing more than half his games the last 2 years. And you gave him a fully guaranteed contract. You gave him a fully guaranteed contract where it's been exhibited for 4 straight years now that the dude struggles to get to 40 games in a season. There's 82 games in a season. There's no way. There's no way that you give that kind of contract to that type of guy. Now, the biggest problem about this is that I think it's quite clear to almost everybody that Bagley is going to be the odd man out here. Wiseman won't be. Duren sure as hell isn't. He's their starter of the future. Stewart is their backup 4 probably of the future. Bagley is the odd man out. And what makes that even worse is his contract's probably going to be untradeable. No one's going to pick up that contract unless you can maybe combine it with with Bojan and have him just be salary filler. Or if you attach a pick to his contract to move off of him. No one's just taking that contract. So now you're stuck with that for 2 years. A guy who's probably going to be out the rotation next season and beyond. Or at least played sparingly. And if you do want to get off of that, you're probably going to have to attach him with something else just to get off of it. And it's not the on-court deficiencies that I'm paying attention to as much right now. You can screw all the other things. You want to pay him for potential, fine. You want to pay him for potential, you think he could be better in the future, okay, whatever. I can criticize that, but whatever, fine. I could understand that a little bit more if he actually played. This dude has proven to be injury prone for his whole career. There's no way you give him a fully guaranteed contract, $40 million basically, for 3 years for someone who you can't trust to play 50 games in an NBA season. There's Derrick Rose, when he signed with the Pistons a few years ago, he had the same injury concerns. He didn't get paid as much as Bagley, and he's by far better than Bagley was. It's mind-boggling. It makes the contract looks even worse now than it did in the offseason. It just makes no sense to me, and it continues to show each time Bagley misses 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 games. Every time that happens, it looks even worse because we knew that this is the player he was. We knew that he was injury prone, but yet you didn't give yourself no out. You didn't give no team option. You gave it all fully guaranteed for 3 years. It makes no sense, and it looks even worse now. So let me know what you guys' take on that is, but it's bad. That probably is by far Weaver's worst move, I think. It probably is. So, again, let me know what you guys think about that. Comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. Coming up, where do the Pistons stand in the race to 1 in the draft lottery? How much of a lead do they have on the rest of the teams? And when will the Pistons win again? Will they win again? We'll talk about that when we come back. But first, I want to tell you guys about one of our sponsors, Built Bar. The Built March Madness bracket is here. We know you have a favorite bar or puff, and now's your time to make it count. Go to BuiltMarchMadness.com to vote for your favorites. You know I'll be voting for the peanut butter flavor. I've told you guys that is my favorite flavor. And if you want, let's say, Michigan to win the tournament, then you'll be voting for that bar too. Support your team and support your bar or puff. And when you vote for your favorite bar or puff, you'll be entered into a drawing where 50 lucky Locked On listeners will get a free box of Built. Not only that, but Locked On fans will receive a 12-month subscription to Built to have Built's best bars or puffs delivered monthly straight to your door. You gotta try Built Bar, the best protein bar ever. Seriously, they're so amazing. You won't think that they're good for you. What makes Built Bars and puffs so good? Well, for starters, they're covered in 100% real chocolate while maintaining high protein and low sugar. That's right, real chocolate, high protein, and low sugar. Run to BuiltMarchMadness.com right now to vote for your favorite bar or puff and pick up a box while you're there. You can vote every day in March, so hop in and support your pick at BuiltMarchMadness.com. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons, hit that subscribe button, or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you are listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. So at this point, where I'm recording this, the 12th of March, the Pistons have the highest odds or are number one in the draft lottery right now. Now, obviously, we know that the top three get the same lottery odds, but that means the Pistons cannot fall any further than number 5 if they were to be number 1. They have a half-game lead on number 2, which is Houston. It really is just a 3-team race, though I don't think it's even a 3-team race. I think it's honestly a 2-team race. I don't think that San Antonio is catching either Detroit or Houston in the race to the top, which is it's sad to call it that, man, because the race to the top is really the race to the bottom. But I don't think San Antonio can catch. They got 3 games to catch up, and I don't see Houston winning many games. But Detroit, I don't know. Like, could Detroit win a game? When will the Pistons win a game again? Before we look at the rest of the Pistons schedule, I just want to click Sim Lottery here. Let's do our daily roll here. And of course, the worst possible outcome happens: the Pistons fall to 5. Yeah, I don't have good luck with these ever. You guys know that. It never works for me. But will the Pistons hold on to the top odds? I think so, man. I don't see a gimme win for the Pistons. I don't see a win coming soon for the Pistons. They just lost the Pacers without Tyrese Halliburton. They play the Pacers again on Monday, and I don't know if Halliburton will be playing or not. If he is, I don't think they win. Even without him, they weren't able to beat them last game. The Pistons are still running this 2 big man lineup, which is basically a tank in and of itself. Jane Ivey's out again with this game, health and safety protocols. Bojan Burks is out. Now Bagley's out, which, heck, that might help the Pistons if they decide to go away from 2 bigs, but he's out. So I don't know if they beat the Pacers tomorrow or whenever you guys listen to this. It would be Monday. I don't think they beat them on Monday. Then they play on the second of a back-to-back the Wizards the following night. They just lost to the Wizards. And they might be without Jane Ivey still. They still will be without Bojan and Burks likely. Then you got Denver, loss. Heat, loss. Hawks, lost. Raptors, probably a loss. Milwaukee, loss. OKC, loss. That's a really good team over there. Maybe they beat Houston. Like, their next win could be March 31st. That could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games away. The Pistons could lose 9 more games. They haven't won a game since the All-Star break. The last game the Detroit Pistons won was against the Spurs on February 10th. They've lost every game since. Every game. They could be going over a month without a win. And then after the Rockets, they play the Magic, which maybe they could beat the Magic. Heat again, no. Nets, I don't think so. Pacers, maybe, and then Bulls, no. So, like, what at most, I think Pistons maybe could win 2 to 3 more games, maybe. And I'm not gonna lie to you guys, unless the Pistons play their whole lineup at some point randomly, and another team just like tanks or something, I don't want to say it's a realistic chance. It's a low chance, but there is a chance nonetheless that the Pistons could just lose the rest of the games, dude. Like it could just happen. So I don't think that the Pistons are going to lose out on the top pick. I think they're going to end up with number 1 odds and secure the fact that they won't fall any further than 5. They've lost 11 in a row. That losing streak could get to 20 games. No joke. It could get to 20 straight losses. So, hey, It's tough, but it is what it is. We know what has to be done. Wemby or nothing. But that's where we're at. Let me know if you guys think the Pistons win a game soon. Do you think there's actually a chance they could lose the rest of their games? Let me know. Comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. That's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button to the YouTube channel on our way to 5,000 subscribers. Leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Stay safe. Go Pistons. Oh my God, go Pistons. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Peace out.